Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you might have been able to tell, I am not here today. I'm finding it to be very difficult to attend the school in which we share, as my services are needed elsewhere. There will be much to discuss upon this matter and how it directly relates to what you're going to be doing in class. However, for today, I have something else in store for you. I am working under the premise that you have been successful so far in the tasks that I have laid out for you, that not only have you completed the multitude of surveys and observed the Web of One TED Talk, but you also heeded my words from previous class, examined the news bias chart, and began a delicate journey at exploring 3 separate sources from that bias chart and trying to identify several articles. What we will be doing in class today is dependent on you accomplishing this already. So if you have not done so, that is your task. Get to this point, and please continue this video from here. But I'm speaking to you now as if you have done so. And for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to set forth your task, your ultimate task. The task in which we've been building up to this moment, your intellectual capacity for seeking truth where truth can be difficult to find, is expanded enough to handle this task. And therefore, I'm going to need you to remain calm, ever vigilant, be very observing of how we get through this process. And not only will you be successful, but you will set yourself up for future success. And where this success lies is something with a goofy name. If you take a look in the bias module, you will see that there are now 2 unique things here. One of them says Soapstone, and the other one says Bias Soapstone Project. I'd like you to go follow along with me. I'm going to click on the Bias Soapstone Project. Now, what I recommend is that you pull this video off to the side and have it going while you are following along with what I am doing. I recommend that you heed my words with this so that you may be able to understand exactly what is being presented to you, and also being able to manipulate it with your hands. So, this will be your final project in this class. It's completing a couple of these soapstones. So, to summarize what this project would be, I had you go to 3 separate websites, one for each political leaning. Excuse me, it is late, and I am in my bunker. One for each political leaning, either veering to the left, to the right, or to the center. And I wanted you to find a topic about North Korea. The reason why North Korea is going to be our topic of choice, is that it is something that is current. It is something that many of you might not have pre-existing opinions on, and it is something that is very delicate and yet not as controversial as other topics might be. That being said, you might have very strong personal feelings about this topic, and that, of course, is perfectly acceptable. I am asking for your discretion, however, when it comes to this project, and I would like it if your opinions would not influence your other classmates at this time. There will be an opportunity for this later. However, what I'd like you to be aware of is that I have a couple guiding components for you to help your project be successful, and that is something that's already listed on the Soapstone project page. So being able to identify media bias is a very valuable tool. Okay? It's something where if you're able to identify things not only within the organization but with particular authors as well, then it will help you come up with a much better, clearer picture of what actually is going on. Unfortunately, there's more than one way of representing a system of facts, and that's why news organizations exist in this first place. So what I'm going to be having you do is, for each of these different articles, you're going to be completing something that we call a soapstone on each of the different articles. Very late here in my bunker. I'm going to be having you also look to identify logos, ethos, and pathos within the article and be able to expand upon that. And I'm also going to want you to be able to explain your own personal thoughts, your own personal biases when it comes to this topic. So if you notice, I have two resources right here for you. I'm going to want you to look at this page that's available on Canvas for you to see more about what a soapstone is. But before I have you go there, I'm going to have you go and make a copy of this soapstone document. Okay? And I'm going to want you to rename it to soapstone and then your first and then last name. So once you've made a copy, you can rename it. The reason why I want you to rename this is that I don't want you to have a bunch of documents that say copy of inside your Google Drive, as it might be difficult for you to identify exactly which you are looking for. And you're going to notice that there's a couple different boxes for you to click on. This is actually a multi-page document. I want you to fill out your name, and if you're working on this with another person, please type their name in there so I know. And what I'm going to have you do is you're going to go and you're going to look up 3 separate sources that you've already identified, and you're going to fill out the information based on what you found. So the name of the source, this would be the article in which, or the name of the place in which you found your information. The name of the article itself, so we can identify this later. And then where did it fit on our news chart? And then underneath that, we have this section that says Soapstone with several different additional modifiers. Okay? That's where the other document that we have access to is going to come in. So after you're done reading the article, you're going to need to answer some questions about the article that you read. think of this like a website evaluation, but instead of evaluating the website, you're evaluating the person who wrote the article that you read and the reasons behind its existence. So, if you notice, you have speaker, occasion, audience, purpose, and subject, and lastly, tone. And here are your instructions for what type of information you're going to need to acquire for each of those boxes on each article. The speaker. What are the key details about the speaker or speakers that are important for the reader to know? So you might need to go off and figure out who the heck are the people that are writing this article. The key details about the speaker or speakers that are important for the reader to know. So what exactly is going on here? What is their background? What is their opinions? If, for example, you were on this CNN politics website and you are reading an article, let's say this one about Stacey Abrams, you're going to notice that some websites will actually not only give you the name, but also a little picture of who it is that is writing the article. Oh, and we get ads too. How lovely. So what I did is, I got spooked with the ad. I clicked on the name of the person, and on this website they actually will let you find a little bit more about the person who wrote the article. You can find out a little bit more about who this person is, what they do, and this site even has a full bio. So you're able to find out more about who they are. And you might start to think about what kind of writer are they? Did they write for other sources? Where do those other sources fit on our spectrum? What primarily are they writing about? Politics, demographics, history, okay? And this also tells me their education level. In other words, are they an expert or are they just some random person that they found to write about a topic? So I would start to filter that information into the speaker section. Who the heck is this person and why should we listen to them? The occasion is going to be what is happening in the world that caused the author to want and or need to create this text. Now I said your topic was North Korea, but there might be several different reasons why you're finding information about this country on the website that you're reading. Is there anything that specifically is happening that's causing this article to be written in the first place? And how do we know this? Where in the article is it explaining this information to you? Okay. Where it says audience, does the author identify an audience? Who are the people that generally read, watch, listen to this text? How might the subject or source where the text is located contribute to the type of audience this text attracts? So this is where you're kind of assessing the website slightly as a whole and then where the article fits on that website. There are some news agencies that are a little bit more accessible than others. If you are looking at a source and you start to glance around the source and you start to realize that they're writing a lot more specific articles about specific topics, you might realize that that particular website has a specific draw, a specific focus for a reason for existing. 538, which I just previously mentioned that one writer used to write for, deals with a lot of sports and politics, but it also focuses in on demographics and a lot of statistical analysis. So you might be, if you're reading that website, you might be someone who is really interested in statistical analysis. So you would want to write down that information inside of your soapstone. The next thing you have is the purpose. Okay? Why does this text exist? Is it to persuade, inform, entertain, or to sell? What are the examples in the text of the reason why? So when we think about a website, we know that a website exists for one of these 4 reasons. We call this PIES. It stands for persuade, inform, entertain, or sell. So what is its function? If this is an opinion piece, they're almost always going to be trying to persuade you. If it's very fact-based data, then we're looking at inform. If it's to provide information, so to speak, but add in a lot of opinions in a way that makes you feel like this is more for fun, so to speak, that might be more entertainment purposes. Or maybe the topics are about people who are also in the entertainment business. Oftentimes, entertainment kind of all fits into one kind of group. Or are they trying to sell something to you? A lot of articles on these news websites won't fit into that last category, but you should always keep that in mind. Why does this text exist? So you'd have to think about it. What is the function of the article? So when I was looking at this first article that I clicked on, when it came to this particular woman's attempt to become the governor of Georgia, we're dealing with to inform. We're not going to be reading anything about why you should want her to be governor. If that was the case, it would be to persuade. They're just going to be talking about a little bit more about the background and history of voting in Georgia. Thank you, Ad. Last, we have the subject. Now, the subject, you can just tell me a little bit about what the article is about. Briefly summarize it in a couple sentences. Your website evaluation, your technology review skills will come into play right here. If I said, what is this article, what is it about, you could just tell me. There is one more box down here that says tone. What is the feeling or manner of expression used by the author? Use a few tone words below. I give you several different ways of feeling when it comes to tone inside of an article. You're going to want to look through here. You might need to do some research as to what some of them mean. But are you finding it to be very light and amusing? If that's the case, then maybe it's a silly article. Maybe that's the tone. Maybe they're trying to be contemptuous towards someone else, so they're going to be very aggressive, possibly. You might say, yes, this article is attacking this other person's belief, therefore that would be inflammatory or mocking. Maybe you can sense sarcasm. Maybe you can sense something that's very celebratory, where they're talking about how much of a benefit they are. If you're able to identify several different pieces of tone within an article, it's going to help you understand a little bit more about its validity as a source. So you're going to need to do that for each of the different 3 articles that you read. You need to fill out one of those soapstones for each of those different articles. Again, if you do not remember what any of them specifically mean, just access the page within Canvas and it will help you. The other thing I want you to do for each of the sources is I want you to identify some piece of rhetoric that's used inside of the article. If you can find all three, that might elevate the opinion that you might have of the author, if you're able to identify just how they're able to try to convince you to listen to them. And again, you're looking for some example of logos, ethos, and pathos, where they're using logic and reason with the logos. Your character, whether or not you're trustworthy. Ooh, looks like I have a low battery. And then lastly, just how much of an emotion are you adding into this? Personalized emotion. Find examples as much as you can of each of them, if you can find it. Once you've completed a soapstone and rhetoric chart for each of the different sources, you do need to do 3. The last thing at the bottom asks you to explain maybe your own personal bias about this topic that might have influenced you when it came to your research. I also want you to compare your bias on this topic with the biases of the articles that you read. Did you find that some of those articles were more biased than others? Then do you think that your own bias influenced how you perceived the different information from each of the sources? So you're going to be filling this out. This is going to be in your Drive account, so you'll have access to it. Again, if you make a copy of it, you should rename it so you can find the specific copy that you're looking for. Don't just keep making copies. And then, when you have written this all out, explained your own personal feelings, then you'll be able to submit it over in Canvas. Gaps inside these generally delegitimize a source, so you're going to want to try to find as much information as you can about each of those different things. As much of it as you can. And finally, when you're done with the assignment, what it is I'm going to have you do is you're going to go into this assignment right here where it says by a Soapstone project, and you're going to submit the list of the file for this assignment. Good luck. You're going to need it.